Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer West. I am your host for the podcast Take Note. I'm also the artistic director of Muse West Concerts, and it is my pleasure to be joined today by a fellow Albertan, although neither of us stuck around.
No, unfortunately.
And I'm joined by my friend, pianist Michelle Lynne. Before we start our podcast, I would like to acknowledge that I am situated as a settler on the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish nations of Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish. These nations have made music for thousands of years, and we are honoring that fact today. And Michelle is situated on the diverse First Nations and Métis land of Treaty 7 and 8 in northern Alberta today.
Yes, I am in Northern Alberta.
You are. So, Michelle, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm great. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, I have a few surprise questions for you that we didn't talk about.
Okay, good thing I'm good at rapid fire.
Are you ready for this?
I'm so ready.
Okay. Bach or Vivaldi?
Bach,
Beethoven or Mozart?
Beethoven,
Okay. And last one, Ravel or Debussy?
Ravel.
Ravel. Those were easy.
So easy. Well, easy for me. Maybe people are disagreeing in the comments already.
Well, they will have to keep their peace forever. So, Michelle is joining us today, and we're going to talk about a wonderful, wonderful project and enterprise that she has started with Deanna. Hi, Deanna, if you're watching.
I just got off the phone with her actually, so
Oh, wonderful.
yeah.
And that would be like 9:30 p.m. in Paris.
Yes, exactly.
Bedtime.
Yeah,
So,
past curfew. Past curfew.
it's past curfew in Europe, yes.
Mhm.
And Quebec's curfew is in a few hours, I guess.
Yeah, this
So
is crazy.
it's a
Yeah.
crazy time, and we're going to talk about what it's like to be a musician in this crazy time.
Mhm.
My first question, though, is what is the Fearless Artist Mastermind? This is a wonderful new project that you've grown in the last year and a bit. Please tell us more about it.
Yeah, thanks. So mastermind is a concept that exists in a ton of other industries like real estate or business. And basically, it's the idea that you come together with a focus group of people who are in your niche and you talk about real world problems and you network and you help each other out. And it's a great way to get alongside high performing individuals who are doing really well in their careers and learn from each other. So we were introduced to this concept. It was a mastermind for classical musicians that Dan and I both participated in. And I fell in love with this idea because I am a huge tribe person. And for me, I light up when I'm on a team. I light up when I'm in a room of a group of people who are inspiring and having awesome conversations about things that matter. So I said to her, like, we're doing this. We're starting our own. So the Fearless Artist was born, and we've been working this past year with classical musicians all over the world from, I believe, 4 of the continents. We've done 5 mastermind groups. We've had 90 different people come onto our workshops.
Amazing.
And yeah, we've just had the best time. We've met so many incredible musicians all over the world who are all navigating the pandemic at the same time. And what we've seen is just that you can really bring inspiration and help people realize that we're not actually isolated as much as we think we are when we get into Zoom rooms and we can talk.
And I, full disclosure, I've done this program twice.
Yes.
With
Yeah, you
Michelle
were
and
one of
Deanna.
our first participants in the mastermind.
Yeah, and it was fantastic. And I feel like it was that sense of community that really brought people together. And it was so wild because I think our second session with the first group was right after the World Health Organization declared this an official pandemic.
Yeah, that's correct.
So that was wild. Wild
It was
timing.
wild because the thing was is that we all had to pivot together at the same time because we started the mastermind by making long-term goals for 3 months from that point, having no idea that we would be quickly going into lockdowns and that most of our plans would be being canceled. So then together as a group, we could really navigate at the same time. What are we going to do? What do we need to focus on? And what are some things that we can not think about to keep ourselves on track? And we did a workshop quite early into COVID. And the 2 main things we heard musicians saying were struggling were isolation and negative thoughts. And so we thought when we come together and we can talk openly and honestly and hear from each other and just kind of share, really puts people back in the right mindset about focusing on what you can do, focusing on what you can control. We can't control a pandemic, but we can control our attitude, our thoughts, our energy, the way we show up, the things that we spend our time on. And when you hear other people that are doing projects or interesting things or new ideas, it just opens your mind up, and I think really help people kind of shift any negativity that they were going through.
Well, and I find that it is easy to slip into a negativity bubble in the classical music realm.
Yes.
It's easy to get caught up in the realm of competitiveness and comparing.
Yeah.
And when we see people get gigs or not get gigs or win things or not win things on social media, it can put people in a state of, oh, I want what A, B, or C has. Why don't I have what A, B, or C has? And I hear these comments from my colleagues and my friends. I hear things like, oh, this person, of course they won this prize because they're a favorite, or what do I have? I've literally heard the words, what do I have that this person doesn't? Or like, what don't I have that they have? You know, I've heard the reverse back and forth, and I've seen people not listen to their friends' virtual concerts or attend their friends' concerts in real life because they don't want to hear it, and they don't want their friends attending their concerts either because they feel like they'll be compared. Yeah. How do you talk to musicians? Because I know you do one-on-one coaching, and this isn't on our Google Doc, but I'm going to go there anyway.
Go girl.
How do you talk to musicians about not comparing themselves to others, and why is it important to not compare ourselves?
Yeah, so I think comparison is deadly, and it's a distraction. Ultimately, there is room enough for every musician to contribute what they have to contribute. And this was actually a major topic in one of our recent workshops with Bernhard Karras, who is the former CEO of the Vienna Concert House and has a startup called Hello Stage. He works with classical musicians from all over the world. He's phenomenal. He came on and did a guest workshop with us. And his whole take on this is that we each have a unique love mark, what he describes as your unique sense of contribution, your talents, your personality, only what you can bring. Another way of putting this is your USP or your unique selling point. And it's really getting down to the grit of like, what can only you offer that no one else can? And that means that you basically become uncomparable. You can't compare yourself to anyone else because they don't have the makeup that you do. They don't have the DNA. They don't have the skill set that you do. And so it's about finding your unique niche and your selling point. Why would someone call me to come play a concert rather than the next pianist? Well, that's for me to discover, and that's for me to promote. And that's why we work with artists on creating their own brand, having something to say, having something to share. And that's when I think when we get out of that scarcity mindset and come into an abundance mindset, and we realize that there's room at the table for everyone. And actually what the world needs right now is peace. It's music, it's connection, it's unity. And so there is room for all of us to come and bring our massive skill set. I mean, I think most of us have 10,000 hours under our belts easily. Some of us by age 12. So there is room for you. It's just about finding that place. And as soon as we start comparing, social media is a death trap if you use it incorrectly. And what I mean by that is if you find yourself coming onto your socials and you're triggered or you have anxiety or you start comparing, then I would just really recommend the unfollow button, the mute button. You don't need to follow all the stories. People won't know that you've muted them if they're triggering you. I would just highly recommend getting that out of your environment, because that's ultimately not helping you put out who you are and what the world needs.
That's right. And I think that when people do get triggered by that, they're missing out on their own abundance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I just want to highlight some of the cool projects that you've done. You've done For Your Eyes only virtual concerts where people have a menu and they can pick their repertoire. That's so cool. Even when I'm organizing concerts, I don't get to pick the repertoire. Sometimes I it's a discussion, but most of the time the person comes to the table and says, I'd like to do this program. What do you think of this program? And usually I'm enthusiastic and I'm pleased with it. But rarely do I get to say, oh, I'd like to specifically have you play this. Now, we have an upcoming project of the solo box suites. So in that case, I did literally approach cellists and say, okay, I'd like you to play this suite, this one, and I had specific cellists in mind for each suite. And so it was a bit different, but normally I don't get to pick my menu. So you did that, and then Neek, wonderful saxophone friend. Hi, Neek, if you're listening.
Sure he is.
I'm sure he is. And you both made Christmas cards, virtual Christmas cards. And you spent a few weekends recording these for people. People sent their little greetings. Even my dad got one.
Aw, I hope he loved it.
He did. So this is the kind of like abundance mindset that I see from you that is really inspiring, and I hope that my audience is inspired too to hear this, because I've just heard so many times in the last like 13 months that people's identities are being torn down. I've had a few friends who had some really big orchestral debut plans in 2020 that just fell through, and I think that it really tested their identity. It didn't test their playing. They're still magnificent musicians, and friends with some pretty specific venue debuts, and it was like that tested what is my worth.
Yeah.
And this leads me into my next question, which are what then are the necessary skills that an artist in the 21st century needs in order to succeed? And maybe we need to unpack that word succeed. But before we unpack the word succeed, maybe just what are some of the skills now? Because it's no longer the days when you went up to your manager's office in Fifth Avenue in New York and you phoned the conductor and you booked 2 years in advance, and that was it. You had your tour. In fact, the first thing that went under in the pandemic were large agencies. It disappeared. And small agencies. And this is sad, but I think it kind of shows us that the skill set is shifting. So what would you say are the new skills?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think resilience is one of the top things that musicians need to develop.
Definitely.
Not that we should look forward to the canceled concerts or like the downs or the drops, but just that knowing that they will happen. And I think if you read any autobiography of anyone who's been successful in the world, you see where the failures have been, and then you see how the comeback. So we need to let our setbacks become our comebacks, and not when we do go through these down moments, and I feel for all those people who had debuts that were canceled. I mean, these are heavy topics. It's not easy. You don't just brush those things off. And I think there is a moment where you really do grieve the loss of what the pandemic has brought, not only in serious things like death or illness, but also the loss of opportunities, the loss of connection, the loss of being outside with your friends. All these things are very serious and aren't meant to be dismissed easily. At the same time, I think that once you do come into that acknowledgement and acceptance of it happening, it's now saying, okay, now what? And so we talk at the Fearless Artist about limitation bringing direction. So this door has closed, this door is closed. That means it's forcing me to go in this way. So now with these new parameters, what is now open to me at this point, and what can I do? And that's, for me personally, like, thanks for mentioning those two projects. That's what came out for me. I got the idea of the one-to-one concerts from a jazz friend of mine, and he was saying, try this. Here are some prices to try. I didn't know if it would work or not. I personally felt a little bit insecure about posting it. I didn't know who would go for it or not. And then since that moment, it was last March, I think I've done between 30 to 40 of them. And
oh my goodness.
Yeah. And like the response has been incredible, because I've reached people who were in complete isolation. They hadn't been able to leave their homes, and people bought it for the uncle who's sitting at home and hasn't spoken to anyone, and then he's watching me on his big screen TV and just had so much joy from that experience. And you start to get the feedback. So I started telling all of my colleagues, the Mastermind alumni, I said, take my wording, take my prices. Just, you have aunts and uncles and cousins who need this, who need this touch of your music. And there's an incredible initiative started by Yolanda Bruno. I just saw on Facebook, and she's called it Music for Your Blues, which I think is phenomenal, because a lot of people have winter blues or seasonal affective disorder. And especially after the Christmas, the New Year, we all kind of go into this lull of January, and we're in a pandemic. And so this beautiful project where she's chosen 15 people to perform for, and she's posting their responses and how they reacted, and seeing these things come up, you just think musicians need to learn how to pivot. They need to learn how to have a flexible mindset, and we need to learn how to be able to bounce back from disappointment.
And the thing about the whole pivot and flexibility is what I've noticed, and I have such a range of musical colleagues and friends, and I've seen different reactions. I've seen some friends become video editing wizards. Hi, Timmy, if you're listening. Check out Timothy's TikTok and his Instagram, Timothy Chui, because the video editing is all done by him. It's amazing.
Fantastic.
It is incredible. And So that's a skill that, and not just Timothy has learned this. Keiko, hi Keiko. So many of my friends have learned this skill over the pandemic, but there were other friends who were reticent, who I won't name. And then those friends have, after they've seen what other people are doing, have come around and said, okay, well, I guess this is where we're at. I
Right.
guess the internet is my new stage.
Right.
And so that it takes certain people a different amount of time to pivot. And it's hard. It's hard to go from walking into a hall where you get a piece of paper. This is what you're going to hear. You're going to be here for 2 hours. There's going to be a 15-minute intermission. And then you're going to go for a meal after. Or a drink. It's a different world now. But I think one of the things that we focused on at Muse West in terms of pivot was, okay, this isn't going to be the same. So if it's not going to be the same, how can it be different but equally amazing?
Yeah.
So now our musicians get to meet the audience on Zoom after.
That's fantastic.
Which is really cool. And on Friday, I got confirmation that a retirement home has bought one of our upcoming concerts for all the residents.
Oh, fantastic. That's great news.
And the residents want to meet the musician after on Zoom. I thought, that's very cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is so beautiful. I just want to share this personal story, bringing up your retirement home. My grandma is sitting in a care center here 5 minutes away from me. She has dementia and she no longer can, she's nonverbal. And the care center, because we can't have in-person visits, started doing FaceTime visits. Well, because I was doing these online concerts, the idea came that I would perform for her 85th birthday in June. So on the call were my parents, my sister, her son, his wife, and me. So there's, a bunch of us on the call, and I play for her, and she's not been able to really say my name or speak in the last few years. And as soon as I started playing, she reached out and wanted to touch the iPad. So there was some level of, I know that this is my granddaughter. I know that she's playing the piano for me, and something connected with her. And it was the most beautiful moment. And we did it again at Christmas, and I started playing and singing Silent Night for her. And beyond, like, the biggest miracle, she started singing Silent Night. And we were all crying, and I thought, this was possible before COVID. I could have easily videoed her from Europe, where I'm based. But because I didn't have this idea of online only, I didn't think to set this up. So this was another example for me of how the COVID limitation created this beautiful opportunity where my entire family is crying as my grandma sings Silent Night. It was just like, I'm emotional even talking about it.
Oh, it's beautiful. And I think that this just shows us the power of how, like, a neuropsychologist have been studying this. Like, why do patients with Alzheimer's and dementia remember the lyrics to their songs from their youth? And
a different part of your brain that's still there. Yeah.
It is. It most definitely is. And I think that those kind of connections are what people are missing. But we've seen that people can make some really beautiful projects with video. I've seen some really wonderful projects. There was a choir in Newfoundland that did just a stunning job, and I'll put that video in the comments after. So this sort of goes in the opposite direction of what we're being taught in conservatories, through the RCM, through the ABRSM, Trinity London, through music school. This is like not something that we're digging into as much. It's get through your recitals, get through your juries, get through your theory classes. Try to remember as much music history as you can for one final exam, and then forget it all the very next hour. That didn't happen. Dr. Grammett, if you're listening, or his son Jacob, I still remember Music 271, so it's actually okay. I still remember. But my question, Michelle, is how can these conservatories and music schools build these now new necessary skills?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is this abundance mindset. I think too often there is still this scarcity mindset being taught that there are limited competitions that you can win. There are limited orchestras to play with. There's limited faculty jobs available, and you're going to be stuck teaching 6-year-olds for the rest of your life unless you're one of like the 1%. And I think that's a shame, because the more I see my incredibly intelligent, talented colleagues come up with interesting ideas, we're in the middle of a pandemic, the more I realize that we are extremely disciplined, focused, creative people, and we can absolutely create our own careers. So with that comes a lot of entrepreneurial skills, understanding how business works, understanding contracts, negotiations, websites. I love that you mentioned some of your friends getting video skills, because I think that is some of the stuff that, I think a video editing class should be included in every Bachelor of Music. We should be able to know how to put ourselves on video looking good. Stage design is something that I've kind of had to start thinking about as I was doing these online concerts, cleaning up one half of my living room.
Yeah.
And like things like lighting, video, photography. We gotta kind of think bigger picture, and I absolutely agree that we still need to be excellent on our instruments as much as possible, pursue that, but there has to be more room for setting us up for the real world. And I am encouraged to hear some programs are starting to have entrepreneur classes, teaching people how to think in these directions. And also, social media, it's huge, and what I've learned has been on the fly. It's been by watching other people, it's been doing my own research, but having these things in our programs as well, just setting ourselves up for that after the program is over.
That's so true. And I just wonder, I hear more than once from more than one musician, different instruments. I came into this program to become a performer. I don't want to teach children where middle C is. How do you respond to that?
Well, then I would say, okay, then get your act together and put yourself out there so that people know how to hire you. And what I mean by that is, again, these online concerts that I offered, I got people calling me to play birthday concerts for their wife because they didn't have a present last minute. So that's another performing opportunity. I have people, we got the opportunity to perform for Muse West concerts, Neek and I. Well, that's because because I've been putting out content consistently on my Instagram. So, A, I'm active, B, my skill level, C, that you would like to have me in your series. So if you want to be hired, you need to let people know you're available. It's a little bit like having a shop with no products in it. So how can people buy from you?
They can't.
And personally, like, I love my students. I keep teaching, but I try and divvy up my career. I think of it in like a pie. We talk about this in Mastermind as well, like your ikigai, which is fulfillment in your career and how many different aspects you have. So for me, teaching is a part of that. But if it was my entire circle, I personally wouldn't feel fulfilled in my career. So then I need to know, okay, what am I investing into that performance chunk to make sure that I'm being able to play, have concerts, put myself out there. And luckily for me, a lot of my concerts that were canceled have just been postponed. Hopefully, I just had 2 more that were canceled because we went into another 3 weeks extended lockdown in the Netherlands, but I'm hoping that it'll be postponed. So I kept saying 2021 is the new 2020. So let's hope that everything just gets shifted a little bit and we got this little break or something.
It feels like we're in a time warp.
Yeah.
It definitely does. Mm-hmm. And I think that some schools are starting to recognize the importance of this. But for me, the musicians that I've seen who've had success with this, it is about their mindset. And it's about their positivity. Because the ones that are being negative about it, we haven't heard or seen from them in months.
Right.
And there are concert series whose newsletters I subscribe to, because I know that we're pretty new at this, and yes, 7 years is still new in my books. So I like to see what do other people's newsletters look like, what is their format like, and also to support them. And one newsletter, who will remain anonymous, said, "Virtual concerts will never replace the real thing, therefore we've canceled everything until further notice." That was the newsletter.
Wow. Yeah.
And it was kind of a slap in the face to those of us who have stayed awake all night, editing, rendering video, emailing videographers in different cities. It just came as like a, really?
Yeah. And I get that. And I think all of us agree virtual concerts don't replace real life ones. None of us were claiming that they do. None of us were claiming that they're better or that we're going to continue. And I do have hope that we're going to return back to the normal concert setting because people love coming together, the energy of the hall, the energy of the instruments. You can't replace this, right? But at the same time, are you going to sit around in your room and feel sad all day? Or are you going to try and do something? And there is so much joy that's coming from these virtual concerts initiatives. A lot of people are being reached in their homes during isolation. If we come back to what the purpose of music is in the first place, it's connection, it's to bring beauty in the world, it's to celebrate art, it's to celebrate the artists who are doing it. And we have a version of that now online. Is it perfect? No, but I think personally it's a lot better than nothing. And so I'm going to try and develop this. And as we continue to put out content, we're getting way better. Like this setup that I have for this, even this Zoom call. I mean, if you looked at me 9 months ago, Deanna, it's the funniest thing. We did this Instagram live. Okay. Our first Instagram live, and we're both sitting not straight. We're like, I'm kind of half on my couch. I'm like waving my phone around. The lighting is terrible. But, we didn't have a plan for what we wanted to talk about. I mean, it was awful. And that was only 6 months ago. And now we have like this brand new setup. We know what we're doing. It's completely different. And that's only because we had the opportunity to practice it. So there is improvements being made, and even like big things like the Berlin Phil, they're doing these digital concerts now. I mean, the quality is excellent. The audio is excellent. So let's celebrate what we can do in this and look forward to when it's going to be over.
Well, and I have such a special place in my heart for Orchestre Symphonique de Montréal. I have two wonderful friends playing as principals in that orchestra. And so when the Orchestre Symphonique offered $97 for 5 concerts, yeah, I'm going to go, and I'm going to crank it up on my speaker and take screenshots of my friends and send them to them and be like, hey, nice solo. And
absolutely.
Hi, Andy and Brian, if you're listening. And it's just been so amazing to hear a Canadian orchestra that is very close to my heart, that I wish I could hear live at, Maison Symphonique, but I can now. And that has brought me really deep joy. And my friend Ariel Barnes is going to be playing Beethoven trios in a week from Germany, and it's at 11 a.m. here, so my class can listen to it while we're doing math. I can put it on the big screen in my classroom, and while we're doing math or art, we can have some nice music. And I have seen the quality improve in people's interviews and their audio, and also we've just started, like, basically, unless you have the setup at home, like, people must record professionally to give us a virtual concert, and it's just, the level now is incredible.
Wow. Yeah, that's so good.
It's amazing, and it's made the listening and viewing experience so enriching. And actually, when I think of because I just watched OSM's Beethoven 7, which also had pieces by Anna Sokolovich and Chausson, and I got to see a close-up of the clarinetist during solos. I got to see the singer's facial expressions during the Chausson. That doesn't happen at a live concert.
I love that you're making this point, because my next thought was, you live in Vancouver and you're enjoying the OSM. Well, even if pandemic or no pandemic, you still have this now opportunity to listen to the OSM that you wouldn't have had before. Either way, you're going to have to listen to them virtually because you don't live in Montreal. So absolutely, the close-up shots and seeing your friends play, supporting the arts in this way, there's so many beautiful benefits coming out of these opportunities.
Yeah. And it's just been incredible. And that reminds me, I need to, Bosun, if you're listening, I am going to purchase the Houston Symphony with Midori. I just remembered. And I promised Bosun I would watch that. So this has been kind of the reality of musicians during this pandemic, is doing recording sessions, teaching online. What are your hot tips for teaching online?
Ooh, hot tips. I mean, me personally, I think probably I'm doing what everyone else is doing, having the score in front of you, having a good angle so they can see your fingers. I've seen some really cool stuff where people have like the iPhone showing their fingers and then the Zoom. I've actually done that for some online concerts where I had my computer set up so I could see everyone in the concert and then talk to them between pieces. That's the other thing about doing these online concerts, is that you get access to the audience so much more easily. So you can actually ask them, you get their feedback immediately. Everyone's putting like the little clapping emoji. You see the smiles. I mean, I've had a lot of it. I played for a congregation, a friend of mine over in Rotterdam, and she wanted to give a gift to thank a lot of people who had been working very hard during the pandemic. And so, all of them were in the room, and it was just nice. I had my phone set up here, and, as long as you can figure out the feedback, which sometimes I'm really bad at that, so I get a squeal here and there. But yeah, so with teaching, it's the same. I like 2 devices is awesome. My iPad functions as my score, and then I just try and get the best sound quality.
And that's the other thing that this pandemic has offered. My piano teacher is in Oakville, Ontario.
Right. Yeah.
And my voice teacher is in Toronto. Mm-hmm. Hi, Chris. Hi, Dr. Bob. And hi, Sasha in Toronto, too, who also listens to me play Mozart. And I just can't imagine how, those kind of opportunities. Now, some people were teaching online before a bit, and you were actually teaching online for a long time.
That's true. Yeah. Because
But
my student in Montreal moved to China and they wanted to continue. So I kept on with her.
there you go.
Yeah.
So it's been something now that I think people have developed the skill, which is pretty amazing. Now, part of Mastermind is talking about goal setting. So, what does it mean to set a SMART goal as a musician?
So, SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relatable, and time-based. And there are a few different words that you can use for that acronym, but basically that's what we're working with. And what I find with musicians is that sometimes we have so many amazing projects that we want to do, or big dreams or big goals, which are awesome. But where we can get stuck is that we don't know how to break it down into step-by-step manageable action points. So I think a lot of us are perfectionists and a lot of us are very driven and focused musicians. So we're like, yes, I'm going to conquer the world. And then we like launch ourselves off this starting point, and then a week goes by and then suddenly we hit the dip, which is normal, but we don't, unless we have developed that resilience mindset, it can easily crash and we're like, what's the point? We're in a pandemic, I'm tired, and all those things can really stop us. So we really work with people to make, okay, for the next 2 weeks, what is your focus? I'm reading this incredible book right now called The One Thing by Gary Keller. And he really talks about how to break down something really big into the one thing that you need to do to move the needle the most in your business. So we use this approach with our clients and we say, what's the next step? And let's keep you accountable and how are we going to get you there? And if it doesn't happen, then we have these check-in calls, and it's very non-shame. It's just a matter of observing, like, okay, I said I was going to, learn this piece or get my website together in this way. Why didn't it happen? What came up in my schedule that I didn't anticipate? And what can I do next time to evaluate and be more flexible?
Makes sense. And those are the ways that people need to approach them, because you have to be able to evaluate your goal. And I think
feedback is super important. If it didn't work, ask yourself, okay, why didn't it work? Without shaming yourself, without saying you're a terrible person, because you're not. It just simply didn't work out. So ask yourself, what can I do next time for a different result?
And that's the thing, is that people need to be patient with themselves and with their results. And I think that the perfectionism really, really gets into that. And the perfectionism really, it can halt people. And it stops them from doing what they need to do, which is really sad, because, they would have had all these opportunities, but if it's not perfect, they don't put out their music or something like that. And I've seen so many friends who, after they give a virtual concert, they're like, take that down, delete. And it's like, why? 2 wrong notes, maximum 4? Yeah. So this leads me to my next question for you. You started this amazing project called Killing Perfectionism in Classical Music. Yeah. Why was this important to you?
So I love what you said about perfectionism halting people, because for me, perfectionism was paralyzing. And to the point where, unless it's at this level, I won't even try. So it just meant that there was a lot that wasn't happening because of this pressure that I was putting on myself. So in 2019, I really went through this year of taking the pressure off and learning to apply that in every sense of my life. What does that mean to not put pressure? And if we even relate back to this example we just said with the video, if Deanna and I had said our IGTVs have to be perfect, and I would compare it, another very dangerous thing, if I compared it to someone like Marie Forleo, who's this incredible entrepreneur, and I'm like, well, her IGTVs are perfectly lit and they're edited and she has a fancy mic like you do in your video right now, then I would never have put out that terrible phone waving, badly lit IGTV, which led me step by step to now I'm doing Michelle TV on my Instagram, which is amazing. And I'm inviting all of these awesome musician friends of mine and interviewing them. So perfectionism for me, it was really a matter of, can I pursue something excellent? And it doesn't have to be this level, but I'm just going to give myself the chance to try and learn and grow. And this is something else that I've learned to develop, as a growth mindset. There's an excellent book by Carol Dweck called Fixed Growth Mindset, and that's been extremely helpful for me as well. Mm-hmm. So the reason I started the Perfectionism Challenge was because, as similarly to you, Jen, I have a lot of friends who refuse to perform or release performance clips on their Instagram. And I thought, I know so many phenomenal artists who aren't sharing their gift because of the fear of being judged or the fear of being labeled as like a B player if something's not at a certain level. Yeah. And I just thought that was really sad, because I don't think Instagram should be like our identity marker. So I started this challenge where for 10 days you had to post 1 minute of content, and the kicker was you only had 5 takes max. So you can practice it as much as you want, but as soon as you're recording, you get 5 takes and you have to post it. And because there was such a large amount of people doing it, I think 75 people joined us in the first 10 days. It was an extremely huge response, and the freedom that people were sharing with me, they said, I've never approached it this way before. Seeing everyone else do it really gave me permission to be free to post something that wasn't perfect. And my favorite story out of all of it was on day 5. I personally was trying to get this cadenza of the lark recorded for my little excerpt that day. And I was on take 5 and I totally biffed it. Like I made like my finger hit the wrong thing. So the whole scale was gone. And I just was shocked and I burst out laughing. And I thought, that was my last take. What do I do? Do I just do another one and not tell anyone? And I was like, I made this challenge. I can't cheat my own challenge. So I ended up posting it with this huge caption saying like, this was my 5th take and here's real life. And people resonated so much with that because it just gives people that permission to be genuine and in process. And I think we really need to embrace process and embrace the craft. And none of my upcoming concerts were canceled because someone saw me make a mistake on my Instagram. And that was the thing. We need to get this into our heads. Like, it is okay.
Not at all. And that's why I was so inspired by this challenge that you put there, because I know I've heard people warming up before concerts. I've heard wrong notes, and I've heard people like in the development stages of learning their pieces before they play for us. And I trust the process, and I want these people to not be afraid, because I know the final product's going to be amazing and people are going to resonate with the music and they're going to love it. So it's just very interesting to me that that got such a response, because I think it really digs into how paralyzing the perfect, quote unquote, for people listening to this on audio, I'm making the quote signs over my ears, the quote unquote perfect polished performance. And often I'll leave a recital unmoved because it was too perfect.
Right.
Now sometimes I will leave and it's perfect and I'm like stunned. For example, when Louis Lortie played all the preludes and all the Chopin etudes in the same recital.
Wow.
Opus 10, 25, followed by the preludes in the second half. And I thought, okay, well, that's a next level of superhuman. And I'm just going to sit there and bask and be grateful that I witnessed that. And I'm going to go practice my scales tomorrow morning.
Right.
But I've also left concerts that were note perfect, but that person didn't engage with us. And I've left concerts where there were a few wrong notes, but that person just shared their heart with the audience, and which is more memorable, right?
Yeah, and then I think we get into the discussion of what is perfect. Is perfect playing the right notes at the right time, or is perfect having something to say and being something to share and communicating, right? I mean, ultimately that is what we have art for, to express and to communicate with each other at a human and spiritual level. So
true. And I remember that I've recorded myself before for various little things, but I made a goal for myself that I was going to record one movement of Bach by the end of 2020. And lo and behold, November 30th, which is pretty close to the end of the year, I did it.
Yes.
And I took 5 takes. And Mark Mouchette, if you're listening, thank you for being the best videographer and audio engineer and patient and making me laugh when I needed to laugh.
That's so important, by the way, when you're recording, to have a good sound engineer who can help you laugh.
Yes, it really made a difference. And I remember take 1 was okay. I was like, oh, first take. There's 1 or 2 things I would change, but, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Take 2, I laughed in 10 seconds and just stopped playing. Take 3, I was like, okay, this could work. Take 4, complete. And then I took a few breaths. I'm like, okay, this is going to be the one. Take 5 is going to be the one. And I just focused and really dug deep into my mental focus and did it. And then I listened back almost immediately on the headphones. And I burst out laughing because I said, no way, my 8th notes don't sound like that, do they? And he said, it's going to be different once it's mastered and different headphones. And so the video came out great, and I was happy with it. and I wasn't sad about the video, and I learned how much more carefully I need to be listening when I'm practicing, and it was
Right.
a really good experience.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was one of the big things for me after doing this for 10 days and you're listening back. You grow so quickly because you're like, oh, I didn't realize I was playing that this way. I would like to change this. You know, you can give this observation or evaluation over your playing, which helps you grow so fast. And for me personally, I didn't like listening back, because then you immediately start going into critical mode, which is a very unhappy place to be. So the perfectionism challenge, like, I think I improved so much in those 10 days just by listening to myself play every day for 10 days.
So a lot of people that listen to our podcast are music students. So the tip here is, yes, record yourself. Bring your phone.
Recording yourself is the fastest way to improve.
It really is. We have some fun questions to end our conversation. So
I love fun questions.
Fun questions. We have 4 of them. What recommendations do you have for musicians in terms of having an alternate income stream?
Oh my gosh. Everyone, please start thinking having 5 income streams minimum. Working towards 5. I think there's such a lie with musicians that we've been told that unless 100% of your income comes from music, then it's somehow making you less legitimate, which is insane and so untrue. So if you can make money in a different way, do it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And just to say, like, I mean, I think sometimes people think, oh, then it'll take away from my time that I want to spend in my music. But I would argue that the more things you have on your plate, the more disciplined you have to be with your time management, and you can actually maybe accomplish more. Or setting up passive income streams and talking to people in your, your family, or, I rented a room in my Airbnb for a while. That's passive income, things like that. Start thinking bigger than only making my money through music.
It's true. Yeah, it has to be bigger picture for sure. And who are some of your favorite composers to play?
Obviously, Brahms is my bae. Love
Johannes in the house.
Johannes in the house. I was discovering some beautiful Grieg lyric pieces yesterday. Just lovely little thoughts, musical thoughts, I would say. Rachmaninoff is a big one, because I cannot express in words the depth that I feel in his music, the torture, the depth of his expression, the things that come through, the inner lines, the harmonies. I mean, yeah, I don't have a language for that, so I love to play it. And of course, coming back to the basics, just the purity of Mozart or Beethoven, and just hearing where everything was kind of built on, and how those guys were thinking, and how they were so ahead of their time back then. I just love that.
That's amazing. So Michelle is one of these rare pianists who is both a wonderful soloist and wonderful chamber musician. This does happen sometimes, but I can really confidently say that now.
Oh, thank you.
You're both. You're so great at both. And what are some of your favorite chamber works to perform?
Okay, well, I mean, I'm going to start with Brahms again. And actually, I had the honor to come play for you live in Vancouver in 2017, which was a huge concert for me personally. It just really set me off on a good place of taking myself really seriously as an artist, because I remember you were the one who encouraged me to get a Facebook page for my artist page, and I didn't have that at that point, and I was still kind of wrestling with this worry of being seen as something by not having a Facebook page. So that concert was very significant for me, and we played the Brahms G minor, and it was awesome. And what else have I recently played? Oh, Dvorak. I did the E flat quartet, and that was also great. And then Mendelssohn C minor trio, I had the opportunity to play last season, and I just absolutely love both of those trios, but C minor is great. I have to do it again soon.
Mendelssohn has so many notes in his trios.
Oh my gosh. And do you know why? Because the piano was so much lighter. I had the opportunity to try the period instrument from his time. And I mean, you breathe on the keys and it goes down. You're like, that's why these triplets are so fast. Because you just can so that was an eye opener for me.
The original tempo was actually playable on that instrument.
Right. Absolutely. That's the thing. So then you start to understand, like, oh, that's why that metronome marking is there.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And our final fun question, and I'm really interested to see how you answer this, because I've gotten the same answer many times, so I'm curious. What is your favorite post-concert meal?
Ooh, wine.
Grapes fermented.
You're right. And pasta. I love pasta.
Wine and pasta. That sounds great. I've heard steak so many times.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, steak's a good one, but it's a bit heavy. I don't know. Yeah, after a concert, I just want to chill, and yeah.
Pasta and wine sounds wonderful.
Please join me next time. Oh no, actually, I should just say a burger. A good burger after a concert is also. I think that's what we had in Vancouver after our concert. So
Yes, we did.
Yeah.
We went to Oakwood, which no longer exists.
Oh really? That's too
Yeah,
bad.
it's a
Okay.
pity.
Yeah.
So many restaurants and businesses changing in this neighborhood, and watching things change with businesses during COVID, it's very sad. But
Yeah.
I want to leave our audience with a few takeaways. So, Michelle, where can they find you in the virtual world?
In the virtual world, I am on Instagram, Michelle Lynne Pianist, or at the Fearless Artist Mastermind is the mastermind company. And that's pretty much where you should find me, because that leads you to all of the other things like website and Facebook. So
Wonderful. It has been my pleasure to welcome my dear friend, Michelle Lynne, who is a wonderful pianist, normally based in the Netherlands, but joining me from a very closer time zone today in Alberta. So it is great to speak with you. When is your next mastermind course starting?
we are in the middle of a launch right now. We're finishing up filling our groups. So you can get all the information on our Instagram. And we're super excited to welcome our new participants in 2021.
10 out of 10, recommend it.
Thank you. I love that.
So I would like to thank a few people. Again, I want to acknowledge that Michelle and I are both on territories where our families are both settlers in Canada, and it's really important to both of us that this is acknowledged, and that we're working with music toward reconciliation of that history. I would like to thank Tom Lee Music for this fancy microphone over here, and to 2X Education, our sponsor for this podcast, and to my podcast editor, Josh Short, the man of the hour. I'm Jennifer West, reminding you to take note. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Jen. Loved it.